In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen.
Hello, beautiful friends. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Claudine.
And this is Shokran Very Much, the podcast. And this week's episode is called Journey Through Time.
Today, we have yet another one of the brilliant minds of our church. Our guest has a PhD in church history, and she specializes in Coptic studies, which is really cool. After addressing the church's future in our last two episodes talking about artificial intelligence, it was important for us to balance that out in the way the Coptic church uniquely can, by adapting to our time but always returning to our roots. We're honored today to get a glimpse of our church's journey through time with Dr. Mary Ghattas. I hope I said that right. So we start every episode with an icebreaker. Yeah, so we that's the one question you didn't get already.
Yeah.
So since you're already on an expert on like a very difficult subject matter, because history is insane, right? We're curious, if you could instantly become an expert in any skill or activity, what would it be?
Oh my Lord. Interior design.
Oh
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
I worked in interior design for a year.
Yeah.
In LA with West Elm, the brand West Elm.
Wow.
And it was so much fun, but I wish I had more like professional background. So I wasn't like an interior designer, I was just a decorator, so it's just like styling things together. And I wish I was a designer, like making the thing that I see in front of me from scratch would be, I just love it.
That's really
I
cool.
love creativity.
Yeah. That's really cool.
I think that's a
Yeah.
part of maybe my own desire for God, because he's the ultimate
Yeah.
creator. So maybe that's it manifesting itself.
Yeah.
You know?
You know what I love is, and I think I've said this before in the podcast, whenever we speak to people and they bring up things, either their current career or stuff they've worked on, like interior design, and they somehow connect it to like their love of God and stuff like that. And it's fascinating to me because he's in everything.
Yeah.
Doctors, engineers, athletes, no matter what kind of career you go in, there's always some way to kind of bring him into it. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned in this podcast. Because you see, you're like, yeah, doctors, because they're physicians, right? That's about it.
Mm.
But when you hear it in these different things, you're like, wow, like he really is everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he's in everything you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like someone was, I was just having this conversation with a friend about time, and he was grappling with time that passed. And there was something he said, I actually can't remember it, but I was like, I actually think that's maybe your desire for eternal life manifesting itself. Like the time that's passed for him is like a thing that he laments.
Wow.
And that I have another friend who just absolutely loves weddings, and I don't get it. Your desire for eternal life manifesting itself, like the eternal wedding banquet of the Lamb. Maybe in a way it's your heart preparing for it. Who knows?
That's so cool
Yeah.
to think of things like that.
That's a cool perspective.
Yeah.
He's pretty cool, I mean.
Yeah. He's very cool.
Okay, shall we begin?
So, what is your PhD in exactly, like the title? I don't want to mess it up, so.
Oh no, you're good. So I am history of Christianity, and my specialty is Coptic studies.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Wait, where did you study it?
I study at Claremont Graduate University. So I'm finishing up. I'm wrapping up.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Been a long journey.
Yeah.
That's really cool, because I didn't think they would have a program, like, for Coptic studies.
Let's see. That's also a long story. You probably could do a whole episode on that as well. They had a world-class scholar who was like in-house for a few years, and he taught Coptic language, history, art. He's retiring, and I think currently they're not really concerned with, we'll have to double check, but they're really not concerned with filling that position again, which is kind of unfortunate. But so the Copts, as we all know and love them dearly for, they love to build churches, right? We have gorgeous churches, but to put money into education is a bit of it's a new concept. So I
Yeah.
don't think they're used to it. So for many years before Acts was established, and also like check me on this. I'm not like I'm by no means the authority. They tried to make a chair for Coptic studies. You need about $1 million a year to keep a chair. So there's a chair of Islamic studies because that's no issue. They tried to make a chair for Coptic studies. It didn't happen. There's a chair for Mormon studies. And why I say Mormon studies is because in Mormonism, the Golden Scroll is written in Coptic. So in all of my Coptic classes, I had a few Mormons. And I was like, wait, I don't understand why you guys want to study Coptic. I don't get it.
What?
How is it written in Coptic?
There's a reason. It's because Mormonism starts in the 19th century.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
With Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
It's 18 something.
Yeah.
Joseph Smith is, I mean, if you look at the origins of Mormonism, there's a similar story in Islam. All of a sudden he's in this forest.
Yeah.
Muhammad's in a cave. He all of a
Right.
sudden sees an apparition. Muhammad all of a sudden sees an apparition, is very unsure about it.
Yeah.
There's probably like more in-depth parallels, but again, check me on this.
Is this a conspiracy theory?
No, it's not actually. It's an attempt to ground this newly found thing in something more ancient.
Yeah.
What's more ancient than ancient Egyptian? The ancient Egyptian language.
Oh.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I see what you-
Yeah.
And he learned
I
Coptic
get
just
that.
for that?
No,
Oh.
he didn't learn Coptic. The thing is, we don't actually know.
Oh, okay. Well, nobody
So
knows.
the golden scroll is like,
Yeah.
it's so sacred. I mean,
See, Natalie's like a very scientific person.
Yeah.
I love history. Like
Yeah.
my thing was always history. So I was already excited for this episode. But this right here, now I'm hyped. Now I'm like,
Yeah.
let's do it. Like,
Okay, I mean, like, why is church history something that should be relevant? Like, why should people study it?
that's a really great question. I think people should study church history because, okay, in any aspect of history, if you are a believer and you have like the proper, like you have an orthodox worldview, you can see the hand of God in everything. In church history, I'd say multiply that. That's very, very prevalent in church history. And then from there, any study of church history, then you can also see like God's hand in your own life, in the lives of those around you. Yeah, I think that's why we should all study it. I think there's phases of studying it, though. I think initially, when we first read church history, we're a little bit scandalized about what happened or who said what or who did what to who. And
yeah.
There's a lot of that. And I think, too, that could be discouraging. Almost like, well, people are doing that, outside in the outside world to each other, and they're doing it in the church to each other, and everything's bad. But I think, too, that even in those things, God's hand's at work. But I think that takes some time. Like, I think you have to sit with whatever you're reading and grapple with whatever things you're struggling with, and put it in front of Him. Like, okay, I don't understand this. I'm not saying like, wow, you're just gonna all of a sudden understand everything, but I think it's a journey. I think too, in our tradition, it's common to sweep things under the rug, gloss over the bad things that happened, and we want to present a good picture, right? Which is, I think, something we've experienced in our lives. Like, anytime we do something, there's always someone who's like, well, what are the people gonna say? I'm sure we've all heard that. And it's like, who are these people?
I want to meet the people.
I want to see these people face to face. So I think that's a temptation from our tradition. I think it's unfortunate, too, because it doesn't allow us to really face the problem. So that's an aspect of history that I think we've got to be prepared for, is that, okay, so sometimes in Sunday school we're not presented with I'll say the whole truth. We're presented with a communal narrative, right? I think history exposes a much messier experience. But even in the mess, it's beautiful. It's maybe even more beautiful than the neat, shiny package that we're presented with. So,
I mean, what inspired you to study it specifically?
oh my God, my journey was crazy. In undergrad, I actually went in as, I was at UCLA and I went in biology for the first 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then I switched my fourth year.
Really?
Fourth
I switched
year.
my fourth year. And still graduated on time by some miracle of the Lord.
Oh my God.
That's
You were
impressive.
grinding me.
It was terrible.
That must have been a tough year. Like, that must have just been a lot of work.
I loved it, so I didn't even feel it.
The fourth
and I
year?
and I'd been
Wow.
taking history classes, I think, in the third year a lot too, so it helped. I was like 2 classes short of a Greek minor, which to this day I'm like, but, it's all good. I'm sure there's a purpose for it somewhere along the line. I switched because I've always had a love for history. And I've always been good at school. Like that, I think that was my big problem, was that I was always like, I loved learning. I was a big nerd, still am. And I was just good at everything. So when I tried history, I was like, wait, I'm really good at this. But, that was like my little undergrad self speaking. I'd get to grad school, it'll humble you real quick. And I really enjoyed it. I met a couple of really cool professors. I actually, my undergraduate, my specialty was Byzantine history. Wow. And like to this day, I love Byzantine history. And so, I met them and I was like, wait, this is like an actual career. Like, I mean, I didn't know. I mean, my little Coptic sheltered self was like, I only have to be a doctor. And I was like, wait, I could still be a doctor.
Yeah.
Just a different kind. So they told me like, you need more languages. At that point I'd had Spanish and Greek, and like if you wanted to study anything with Eastern Christianity, they're like, Spanish is just like a nice pat on the back. Doesn't help you at all. Wrong. It helped me in learning French quickly.
Did you know Latin?
I didn't learn Latin.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't learn Latin at all.
So how many languages do you speak?
I don't speak, I speak 1.5.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I could count that I speak Arabic. I think I speak it well, and then I go to the Middle East, and I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen. But I understand everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever dialect, like, I'm there.
All the dialects?
Except, I'm so sorry, except, like, other North African, like
Morocco,
Algeria, Libya.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's
I
right.
have no idea what you're saying.
Yeah. Anytime I get exposed to like anyone like Moroccan or Algerian talking, I'm like, we cannot be speaking the same language. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, there's
absolutely no way.
And I don't think
me
we
and you-
actually are, because there's a lot of Berber and a lot of native, like North African tribal words in their Arabic.
Yeah.
And so,
And
I don't think it's the same language.
I think they have a lot of French influence on them too, because they were occupied by the French, I believe. But you would know that more than me.
No, you're
Yeah.
right. They were occupied by the French, and a lot of them live in France now.
Yeah.
But no one can convince me that is Arabic. That is North African.
North African.
That's not
its
Arabic.
own language. We speak like an English Arabic. Like, I don't know. I sometimes I wonder like what kind of influence English had on the Arabic that we now speak, because
That's an interesting question.
yeah, I don't know, that's just something I ask myself sometimes, because it definitely doesn't impact the Coptic, because we weren't speaking Coptic when the English came, but I don't know, because it's fascinating to me that so many countries could be speaking Arabic, but all of them sound so different.
I mean, it's like Spanish, right?
Yeah.
And when you travel through like South America, every country is a different dialect of Spanish.
I would just be like, I don't understand all of you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, we probably understand Mexican Spanish the best.
Yeah.
But if you go to Spain, it's a completely different pronunciation.
Yeah.
And then in Argentina, I was like, I have no
Don't
idea
they speak
what
Portuguese there?
in Brazil.
In Brazil.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
No, you're good. But the funny part is, I was in Portugal one summer, and I had no idea. I've never been exposed to Portuguese, and I was asking for help in Spanish, and so they fully understood me.
Yeah, but
And they're speaking back to me in Portuguese, and I'm like trying to string together what sounds familiar. They eventually like walked me to wherever I had to go. It was very kind of them, but they understood me.
Yeah.
So I think, Spanish is maybe understood a little bit more than Portuguese.
Yeah. I'm curious, how many countries have you been to?
Not that much. I think I keep going to the same ones over and over. I think my most like exotic places are probably Hong Kong.
Oh.
Hong Kong was like, that was my first time in like Asia proper. Like I'd been to like Asia, the Middle East, but like Jordan, Lebanon. But that was like my first Asia proper. And Japan's still on the list. Dream destination. In South America, I've only been to Argentina and Mexico, in Central America. And South America is really lovely. Like, I don't know what took me so long to get to South America. But I go to Egypt a lot. I go to Egypt a lot for work and, you know, try to go for research. And I've been to Greece quite a few times. But I think for a very specific reason. I think Greece reminds my parents of the Egypt they left behind. So we spent a lot of time there. London's one of my favorite cities in the world. I spent a lot of time before COVID just traveling the world. I traveled as much as I could. Was it 2015, was it, when the 21 martyrs of Libya were... I was in Beirut, Lebanon, when that video got released. And I was there... So I'd gone the year before by myself, and then I was like, my parents are going to love it here. I'm going to bring them back. So that was the year I brought my parents. And so we were walking... We'd seen that on TV. I was horrified. I was so horrified that I didn't want to, like, explore that story at all. And we were just walking in the street, and a bunch of people, mainly Muslims, they'd go up to my dad, and they're like, "You're Coptic," and they'd shake his hand and say, like, "We're so sorry for your loss. Like, whatever was done was horrifying."
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So that's something I think that's going to stick out in my head. Like, that has to do with Lebanon for sure. The people in Lebanon are very warm and hospitable and kind. So.
Did they just recognize that he was Coptic?
Well, he's a priest. At St. John's in Covina.
Oh, very
St. John the Beloved,
very cool.
This last summer, we took a bunch of youth to go see the Cave of Revelation on the island of Patmos, where John saw the revelation.
Wow.
So peaceful.
That must be so cool.
Oh, it was so cool.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I think I wouldn't be... I would just be like, you know, Moses, like, take off your shoes, you're on holy ground. Like, this is insane.
Yeah, honestly, like going there, in the church there's a cave, right? That's the cave that he was exiled in. Yeah. And then in I want to say the 11th century, there was a Greek monk named Christodolos, which means slave of Christ, who went and built a church, like right adjacent to like it's in the same building. And he built a monastery up on the mountain. So there's like a fortress around this monastery because the island was it used to be a prison. The whole island used to be a prison. And so he went and, like, I guess since the time of St. John till his time, it wasn't as populated. And so he went and built a monastery and was, like, teaching the people about, like, what happened on this island. And more people came to the island. It became like a second Jerusalem for the Greeks. It's really hard to get to from Athens. There's no flights or anything like that. There's a 9-hour ferry that leaves from Athens once a week, which is kind of crazy. But it's only 4 hours from Istanbul, so I'm like, I don't get it. It's like really, it's more closer to Turkey. But anyway, this monk built this monastery, which you can go to today, and you can see it on top of the mountain. At some point, pirates heard that this monk was building this monastery, and and people were donating money to the island and to the monastery and to the monk, and so they were coming to just pillage the place. There's pirates, and so they saw the ship coming from the top of the island, and he told the people, let's pray, and the people prayed, and the pirate ship turned into a stone. It's like this huge rock just protruding out of the ocean. And so this last year when we went, we're like, the tour guide was like, do you see this rock over there? And we're like, yeah. And she was like, that was a pirate ship. And we're like, ha 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 ha, like, oh,
very funny.
Exactly. And then she told us the story, and we were like, whoa,
I had no idea.
That's
Why do I
insane.
not know this stuff?
This is fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, this is she's like, local legend says, but we serve the God of the impossible. Of course he could turn a pirate ship
that,
into
of course.
Yeah, it's
into a rock. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's easy.
He's raised people from the dead.
Yeah.
The pirate ship is not.
The pirate ship's not a big deal.
But that is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's all these
I didn't even know
myths
that
and
people could
legends.
visit this place.
Oh no,
Now
it's
it is
great.
on my bucket list.
No, it's
Yeah.
real. You can go. It's really lovely.
Wow.
Its people are really lovely. I definitely recommend you go and read the Revelation in the Cave of the Revelation, or the letters of John, the epistles of John, or the Gospel of John. He's my favorite biblical author, so that's why I'm like, go.
That's very cool.
Patmos is lovely.
Is history the same as tradition?
No.
No.
I would say that, so if we talk about history in a more academic sense, you have rules and standards to include whether you can include sources or not, or whether something counts as a historical source.
Yeah.
Tradition is a little bit more encompassing. For example, these stories we talked about, the pirate ship and the magicians and all that on Patmos, that is tradition, because academia would tell you that doesn't count as history. But the beautiful thing about God is that he works outside of academia even. He can work within, obviously, but he works outside of it. And so tradition is fascinating. And I think especially for studying church history and for the people of God to know what he's done, and to be able to look back at everything he's done and to proclaim his works. Tradition is very important. History, I'd say, is a small part of that. It has to be well defined, well documented, attested across multiple sources. The sources have to be trusted.
Yeah.
For example, too, in academia, a large question is, did Mark the Apostle actually come to Egypt?
Excuse me?
Yeah, I know. Actually taking a dig at our father, our father who taught us the faith. The reason for that is, so there are 5 centers of Christianity, right? Rome, Constantinople, Alexandria, Antioch, Jerusalem. Besides Jerusalem, I'd say Alexandria and Antioch are probably on the same level. They're the oldest.
Yeah.
And Antioch also has claims that Peter preached in Antioch, which all the Syriac traditions attest to. But Rome is no, Peter's ours. And he was martyred in Rome, so
Yeah.
okay. But the whole idea of the keys and succession is another, we're gonna shelve that conversation. But taking a dig at Alexandria and Alexandria's claims to apostolic succession, I think is because of Alexandria produced patristic giants that none of these others did. They did produce, great people, amazing. But if we look at the history of Christianity, where would it be without Athanasius and Cyril, who come from Alexandria, and where would it be without monasticism, which, now informs the hierarchy of the Coptic Church, which it wasn't always that way, but now it is. Athanasius put that system in place.
Yeah.
And so it's just a dig to weaken the ethos of Alexandria.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really work.
How do we respond to that? How do we or do we just let it happen?
No, we don't let it happen.
Yeah.
We tell them our tradition is also quite long,
Yeah.
and it's attested to in multiple traditions, not just Coptic one.
Yeah.
It's attested in the Ethiopian, the Armenian, and the Syriac as well. And your response to that is you also look at the same sources they're looking at. And if that was wrong, if it was a wrong claim, there would have been a correction somewhere along the 2,000 years.
Yeah.
There's nothing that isn't truth that people believe for thousands of years consistently. If it's not truth, it is revealed.
Yeah.
And it is revealed clearly. Yeah. So to that, the whole academic side of it is like, we don't have anything before the 4th century that attests that Mark had a mission in Alexandria. So the first source they look at is Eusebius's ecclesiastical history. I want to say, I just looked this up. It's in book 2. And Eusebius himself says it is said that Mark went to Alexandria. So they take that and blow that out of proportion. And that's also a part of a larger stream of arguments in the academy where it's almost like if you want these other things to be true, this also has to be true. So like there's this German theologian, church historian from the late 19th, early 20th century, I want to say. His name is Walter Baer. He has this book out called Orthodoxy and Heterodoxy. Sorry, Orthodoxy and Heresy. I'm going to get you the proper title. Okay. I can't remember right now.
Once we get it, we will link it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So he has this book out, and in it, he makes a claim that we don't know anything about the first 200 years of the Church of Alexandria except for the list of the patriarchs that Eusebius has in his ecclesiastical history, because the Christianity in Alexandria was heterodox. It was heresy. It was Gnosticism. It wasn't orthodoxy.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So you just kind of hear that and you're like, okay, tubs. Like,
yeah, like,
your
sir.
church started in the 16th century. Don't come at me, you know. Yeah. And that, unfortunately, happens in the academia a lot when it comes to Egypt in general, because Egypt is a land of mystery. It's the unknown, exactly. And everyone is interested in it.
Yeah.
Everyone. Even if we are not, everyone is. You know? And we have to be aware of these conversations. It's kind of like the whole like Mormons wanting to learn Coptic thing.
This is taking a turn that I didn't think it would go into.
There are really great historians out there doing amazing work. Like I'm gonna shout out Deacon Sawiris. He's amazing.
Shout out.
He has this his dissertation, I think, is published, and it's a book that I use in all of my classes, and it changes how we think of the Arab conquest. It's a great book, and I think everyone needs to read it. But
fascinating.
He's great. He does amazing work.
What role did monasticism play in the spread and preservation of Christianity in the Middle East during pivotal periods of history?
To hear the answer to this question, make sure you tune in next week to Shokran Very Much, the podcast.
Shokran very much for listening.
And we'll see you next week.